Mhm. Yeah, well, I turned it on so people could see me, because otherwise, when you're on your computer and like you can barely see the people up there.
I know.
Okay.
No Falco either.
Oh, yeah, Falco's not here. All right, so here in the room, Chief Hawk, June, myself, Jack, Justin, Rita, and Brad. On the Zoom meeting, we have David and Matt. And we are missing Cynthia and
There's
Falco.
Just-
Oh, Falco just joined.
I assume it's Falco. Falco?
Yes, this is Falco.
I would
Okay.
never recognize you if I saw it because you're never on.
Okay, perfect. So everyone, except Cynthia is here. We'll get started. Don't see any public online. There was none here in the room, so number 2 is irrelevant. Next order of business to approve our previous meeting minutes from September 26th.
And make a motion to approve those minutes. I didn't see anything wrong with them.
Second.
There was one thing I noticed that maybe, just for clarity. Under 4B, the get updates of the personnel board. The first bullet point says that the current eligibility list will expire September 26th, 2024. I believe the list, that's the latest it can expire, but it's currently set to expire at the end of what, March or April? March?
March.
So I
So
think for clarity, we should just make sure, that we just state it expires March 31st, 2024, and can only be extended to September 26th, 2024 at the latest, or something like that.
That's a good point. So had we already voted to extend it the 6 months by last meeting? I think that was 2 meetings.
Town council
Town council.
votes on it.
Right.
So we'll just have to find that date and put that in here. So
You did vote on it, yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, let me look at my notes. I
It was
think,
like-
I think it was March 31st.
Oh, that's right.
Let's see. Yeah, 6 months, end of March. Yes, you said end of March, so David's correct. So it'd be March 31st, 2024.
It might be the 26th. So just, I would just check with the town, or I can check.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay,
I'll check the date.
so June's got,
So what do we do then? Just
Amend,
not approve, amend them? Okay.
approve it as amended.
Yeah, that's amended, but we know the amendment.
With the corrections.
late March 2024.
Good one, good one.
Maybe I can find it. Okay.
Okay. Maybe we'll just come back to that then. Any other comments on the minutes? September? Okay, new business, so. For those on the Zoom meeting, Brian, our town manager, was just in here and said,
Amy, wait a second. Don't you need to vote to approve the minutes?
we're gonna hold on that. Because Jack is looking up the
You
exact
can
date.
vote on it to have the date amended.
We-
as-
Right, so we can vote on to have it, to amend it as we just discussed.
Okay, that works. So we already have a motion and a second, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes from September with the amendment to the date for the list expiration, whatever that may be.
To be determined.
To
End
be-
of March. Yep.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. All right, thanks, Matt. Okay, so it is not part of our purview, I believe, is kind of what Brian was trying to say in a much nicer way. To consider the school board proposal. However, I do think it's a matter of interest to us as we are helping to staff the police department and considering staffing for the police department, and that could be affected by this decision. So I didn't know what people not sure how to ask this question, and maybe it's what people have heard or how people feel about this or what questions we have. I don't know. I personally, unfortunately, cannot attend the school board meeting tomorrow, but to me, it sounds as if they're going to take a vote tomorrow. From what I saw on the agenda. So let's just,
So I have a few thoughts, just generally speaking. So I've been engaged since last week when I've communicated with the personnel board regarding this emergent, unique situation. So I'm looking at this and commenting this specifically as it pertains to how it could affect us from a staffing perspective. Because there's two things that were of note to me in the school board's presentation. The first of which is that they're targeting retired or retiring police officers that have full benefits and have some sort of a pension because of what their pay range is. Their pay range is roughly $47,000 a year. Based upon that, obviously, it's not going to be competitive with our existing officers as they sit. But if we have officers that are retiring, is this going to be an enticement? I don't think so, but I don't know. And then the other piece is their plan A, from my understanding, is that's their target audience. If their target audience falls through, essentially their initial plan of trying to get 12 officers at $47,000 a piece that have full benefits, that have a pension, to come work for the school district. If that doesn't work, then they're going to have to change their pay structure. I'm guessing. I don't have inside information on that. If that were to occur, then that would be potentially in direct competition with us looking for our police officers as well. So this is very early in that aspect, but I would just say that we need to be aware of that. And we need to make sure that, and I know Chief Hawk is working on this. He'll be working with the superintendent and other chiefs of police from other municipalities when they get into those conversations with the superintendent, with that, potential new chief of police, from the school district, if that resolution carries, and hopefully clearly defined rules of engagement, policies, procedures, things like that about sharing resources, how to utilize resources. Because from that aspect, I do have a concern as well. I believe the superintendent is of the mind that discipline will stay with the school district, and therefore law enforcement activities go to the local municipal law enforcement, which provides both a benefit and a challenge, right? So the benefit is they can potentially react in the moment. The challenge is then our police department may be engaged and they're going out there more than what they're going out there now, from the aspect of you're going to have 12 schools, 12 police officers. Are they going to be seeing more things and have to respond to more things? I don't know, but we just need to talk about what that engagement is from the chief's standpoint. He'll have to work with the superintendent. I want to be sure that we're sensitive to that when we're talking about how we're staffing, because our current staffing model is based upon, we have 2 SROs. The school district doesn't have a police force, and we don't have additional calls for there. So just throwing it out there. I know there's a lot of information. I'll pause.
does anyone know, would these positions not be benefits eligible then?
They will not.
No,
Oh,
that's what's
no,
my
then.
concern. Are they able to unionize? Are they able to then negotiate their salaries? Assuming that's not the case.
What I did talk
But
to
that would be
is-
the school board's problem, not. So, Chief,
Right.
I'm not,
Be all of our problems when we have to
You're
pay
not being
pay the
actual-
taxes for it.
right, they're not an Act 120 arrest powers, correct?
We would do all misdemeanors and felonies. And I asked the chief how many we're doing today. Did you have to look that up, chief?
We have not yet. I apologize, Jack, I got sidetracked this afternoon, but, yeah, in talks with the superintendent briefly, he said that, sounds like they would handle disciplinary and such, obviously in-house, kind of how it's being done now.
Is that how our resource officers work it now with Metzger and, is that how they?
And when they have to charge, they do, Rita, but by and large, if it can be handled in-house in the educational atmosphere and the school district can handle something that doesn't necessarily need to be a criminal charge, I think they explore those options.
There won't be a certified police department.
I believe they're
Mm,
trying.
yes, they will.
I believe they're gonna go to the common police court and ask.
This
Okay.
isn't something that's gonna happen quickly. They'll hire a chief. And then over the next 3 or 4 years, they're gonna roll out their program.
Okay,
So it's probably 3 years, we'd still be staffing an SRO.
And it's under Pennsylvania Act 44. So I encourage you to take a look at it. It's interesting. Like I had a lot of learning in that one. That was interesting to read.
Chief, did the current officers, were they, did they get a grant for that?
The district, I think I've shared some opportunities in, the last couple of years. I don't know that the district has secured any. I know that, that's an option, and like I said, I have forwarded them along, whether or not they've applied, I couldn't say for sure. They do cover, a portion of the officer's salary.
Right.
Obviously,
The school district does.
the district does, yeah.
do Northern Regional or Franklin Park do anything with the school district?
Not yet.
So as SROs, we're the only ones that actually supply SROs to the.
Because they're in McCallum, high school and the middles and the intermediate are in McCallum, so that would make sense, but you're right, if you go, if it's a retired officer, it could be retired from anywhere, really.
Right.
So I'm also concerned about communication. Would it be, they wouldn't presumably be on the same frequency as our officers, correct? So they would, if they couldn't handle it on their own, how would they get in touch with Northern Regional or McCandless Police or whomever to say, come help us?
It's a challenge. There's a possibility that when they get up and running, they get police radios. That's gonna be part of their uniforms. I'm sure they're gonna need radios. They could explore, and probably with the help of county communications, possibly putting our channel on their portable radios. Otherwise, the other option would be like anyone else, you'd almost have one of them have to call 911 to get us to respond. I'd like to think that they would get our channel put on the radio with instructions that, when they need to get on. Because of an emergency, they can jump on and ask for our help.
And our officers might know something even before they do, right? And you would want to get, and what, we don't have anyone in our police force assigned to social media, do we?
We have, I guess you would call it a couple that handle our Facebook page. The town has a
Yeah.
public information officer, or it's not an officer, I guess, John Pojarski. And I have a couple sergeants that can post things when we need them posted. Kind of in a,
I'm talking more like monitoring social media sometimes, because that's where a lot of
yeah.
the worst things come from.
I would say up to this point, usually if something's brought to us, our detectives will explore it. But if they're regularly out there watching on, probably not at this time. Yeah.
It's hard to do that. Okay.
And, sorry, I lost my train of thought a second. So currently our SROs, when they're more available in the summer, that's presumably when they tend to take vacation time and,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of their discretionary leave will be during the summer whenever we get them back. From the school.
Is there more crime in the summer, less crime? Is there no patterns in that?
It's a topic that could probably be up for debate, depending on the heat and stuff like that over the, that affects folks' demeanor and attitude. So, but I would say that, by and large, I think it ebbs and flows, right? You might have some summers that are busier than others. Just kind of a. I don't know if there's a rhyme. or
So from our perspective for the department, I think Jack said that if this plan goes forward, it's kind of a good 3 to 4 year plan for the district before they, have their whatever you want to call it, their police force, I don't know if
So
how they'll refer to it.
I apologize for interrupting. I don't think that's accurate.
Oh,
I believe that they'll probably have a police chief in place. I would I was to venture a guess, based off my conversations. Within 6 months, and then I think that police force. They want to hire within a year. They want to,
Oh.
they want to move fast. They want to move
Okay.
fast. That's based upon their candidate availability. I think that's where the snag is gonna be.
Right. So even with that, so whatever the timeline is. We've talked in previous meetings that we have a number of officers who are approaching retirement. Who could retire, and to Justin's point. It's not just a matter of enticement for, okay, so if somebody retires now, they kind of have a place at home here where they could move, so will that pull them out? But it's also the lining up of the timelines. So we're facing an imminent problem with potential retirements. At the same time, there's a local employer who will be hiring people that are retiring, so it compounds our retirement problem. And whether it sticks to the time frame that they want to do or not, that's gonna be a problem for us. So in the very short term, it gives us back the 2 SROs potentially. If they hire a couple people directly very, very quickly. But in the longer term, this very much complicates and worsens the position that we're in. I mean, I guess really, Jack, that's all more for you to bring back to council, I guess, because there's nothing we can do about it. Until we hire more, but that's just from the staffing perspective that comes to mind. And then something, if I'm able to go to the meeting tomorrow night, the practical perspective that I worry about is if they have an in-house police force, what are the chances of things that should be getting reported to local police not getting reported to local police? The school district is going to have an incentive to not report things to the local police unless they absolutely have to be, even when they should be reported to local police.
Well, the state requires all schools to report incidents of violence. And that doesn't necessarily involve police. You can go on a website and find out how many incidences of violence across the board.
It might be required. I can guarantee that there is not 100%.
Oh, I'm sure.
That is not stuck to 100%. And this only tilts the playing field more in that direction of not meeting 100%. So again, nothing we can do about it as a board. That's really more directed to the school board than it is to this personnel board, but something to think about there for everyone involved.
Well, in a school district, they're not, if you're looking at it that way, then they're not reporting 100% anyway, because we're not in 100% of the schools.
Yeah.
Meaning if he's concerned about 100% being reported because the police are in the school, we're not in 100% of North Allegheny schools. We're only in.
There are some incentives to report for it.
Well, what I'm saying is whatever that percentage is, this move only makes it more likely that percentage goes down. It's more likely to move the needle down than up. Let's put it that way.
So from a staffing standpoint, really, it could affect our officers that potentially could be retiring soon. I don't believe it's going to have any enticement on the new officers we're bringing in based upon their current recruitment model that they've shared with the public.
Salary and benefits just aren't gonna cut it.
They're right. So I mean, they wouldn't compete with us at all. So not to transition, but to kind of transition based upon some of the ads that have come out in the last week. Collier Township and Finley are the two that have come out with pretty aggressive ads as far as what their compensation level is and that they're hiring and they're gung-ho. So we need to be aware of that. And we also probably as a board and as a council need to think about you know, what kind of recruitment strategy we might have to do in the next go around, because we're gonna probably have to up our game as far as how we're sharing this information, how we're advertising it, and who we're targeting and where. Because I've had multiple officers send me information over the last week of, hey, here's what's happening. So it's pretty eye-opening.
Well,
Is
yeah,
this a foregone conclusion that it's gonna happen, or is this like, they're still debating whether, because I as a taxpayer don't approve of this at all. I think this is terrible.
I
They're
think the
voting.
vote is tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, the vote's tomorrow.
so they first
Yeah.
brought it up, what, a week?
Last,
A
yeah,
week
a week
ago.
ago.
They're voting on it tomorrow, so it's
right.
very quickly trying to
There
get.
wasn't much
pushed through.
engagement on stakeholders as far as that goes, the way North Allegheny usually does that. They just decided they were going to do this.
And Matt, I'll share with you, the superintendent has been pretty responsive. If you shoot him an email, he'll probably call you back.
Mhm.
So he and I have had several conversations. I would encourage you to maybe think about that and to have that conversation, see what your thoughts.
They have released their public safety director
Mhm.
to hire the police chief, so
This is
They
what-
did?
what
they have
you-
released their public safety director
Yes, which is interesting.
to
because-
hire. The salary is exactly almost the same.
But he
and-
had a more encompassing,
But
job.
Whoever the police chief is, that's gonna be emergency coordination is
Everything.
gonna be their job. That's-
fire
I can,
and safety, both, everything.
So that's all I had about
Did they
that.
say how
matter.
much they're gonna pay?
I heard around 95,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Like, That's what I've heard, so
Right,
but that's around what I've,
they might get in the real world and find. that nobody's.
well, now, someone will take that, for 95 grand for that job, someone will,
You want a qualified person in that job.
you'll get somebody retired from the FBI, somebody retired from, you know, one of the state police, something like that.
They have a Franklin Park police officer that's now the chief over it.
North Hills,
High
Chuck
school.
Bossel.
Yeah.
I worked with him for a couple of years.
So back to the recruitment strategy issue with Collier and what was the other one?
Finley,
Finley.
Finley. So they put the salary right there in the ads.
right there, yeah.
And it's been a while since we've discussed salary, but I'm almost certain that in both cases it was higher than the maximum that we pay here in McCandless.
But they also put requirements of a 4-year degree or accredited college, and we were thinking of getting rid of those. And so keep that in mind when you think about that, because their requirements are a little higher. I mean, right now they're even with ours, but I think we have that as underlined as a discussion point.
Salary is only one piece of the equation. I think if you stack up all the benefits and price it out, you're gonna find we're one of the top paid agencies in Pennsylvania. So, you know, you can put something out there that doesn't make it 100% accurate. It's sales. So they're gonna put the highlight. Now, I think what we've tried to do is under the negotiations with the current contract, we've tried to address some of those things. So,
So what benefits do we offer that are better than average?
well, they have what do they call that? Drop.
A drop program.
Have a drop pension option for 3 years.
Right. And got a good retirement plan. I don't know if that'd be different than what Finley offers.
Hard to say. I know that there's, during the negotiations, there were a lot of comparatives, comparables, but without having it in front of me, I couldn't say for sure. Like Jack said, there's a lot that goes into it as far as salary and benefits in general. A lot of officers will put weight on the schedule that they're working, stuff like that. If they, residency requirements and such.
Overtime.
Post-retirement healthcare is a lot.
Post-retirement health
And
care.
there are only 8,000 people in Collier, and what is their tax structure? I'd like to know and they just built this amazing community center, and I'm thinking, holy cow, what is their tax structure? And how are they able to afford that? But that's not my problem.
Well, and whatever those other than salary type benefits are to working McCandless, whether our schedules are more flexible or attractive or the retirement options, whatever those are, we just have to be able to sell that, because otherwise numbers are pretty easy to compare and they're
Yeah.
looking at it's that one number of the paycheck and they're thinking, I'm not gonna go to McAllis, I'm gonna go one of these other places that get a little bit more in my paycheck.
What I found when they're young, that's what they look at.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
well,
That's when they
if we
start-
don't, if we don't have some kind of equivalent messaging or put something together. You know, if they're not comparing it to anything that we've put together, let's put it that way.
Right,
Then then that's just a case of perceptions going to be reality. Because they'll be looking at what Collier is putting out. And our benefits might stack up equally, but we don't have anything that's summarizing it to say, hey, look, you get all this here. And so in their minds, it's not there. It's perception becomes reality in that point. So, you know, there may be some kind of messaging that we need to be put out there too.
So I know we've been talking about retirement flight risk. We also need to think about new officer flight risk as well. Because if we have officers that have been here less than 5 years, they're looking at something like Findlay Township, maybe it's more attractive to them. You know, or if let's say we do hire 3 new officers in the next 18, 24 months, who's to say that they wouldn't see this and as a better offer? So we need to consider that as well.
what is it listed for salary and benefits?
So salary, starting salary is $87,000. After 5 years, it goes up to 118. I'm sorry, after 3 years, it goes up to $118,000. So I mean, it's significant.
And then they go on to list generous.
And then that's
stipends
base,
And,
and that's base too. That's not counting overtime for court time.
Yeah.
right,
So, and Jack, I know we gotta wait till arbitration, but we're gonna have to rock and roll, I think, once arbitration gets wrapped
I
up.
agree 100%.
Yeah.
so actually, that's a good segue to the next agenda item, the org chart that June shared with us. We were talking last time and for me, I'm a visual person, so it helps to have something in front of me. So it looks, just counting here, that there are 10, possibly more. Well, just patrol officers, there are 2, 4, 6, 7, 7. 11? Oh, 11 total, but patrol officers 7 vacancies. Plus 1 detective, plus a lieutenant, plus an assistant chief. Where are you getting 11?
I counted the 3 detectives.
Oh. Well, we have 1.
Okay.
Sergeant, I agree with the detective.
So
1 vacancy, I
Yeah.
guess, due to historically 3
Okay, right,
detectives.
1 vacancy. We have a detective sergeant and a detective back there when we used to carry 3. We were up at full staffing, you know, based on their caseload. Ideally, I would like to get that back up to 3.
Any questions, comments on this?
So Chief, just to throw it as a refresher to me, do we typically like to promote from within for detectives? How do you like?
Yes, and
Okay.
the process for detectives, at least as long as I've been here, it's a lateral move.
Yep.
There's no raise or anything associated with it. It's always been the chief of police's decision,
Okay.
probably with consultation from his command staff. So while there isn't a raise, obviously there's some benefits where you're pretty much, you know, mostly daylight. And whatnot, Monday through Friday kind of thing, unless something dictates otherwise. But the assistant chief of police position, I think, hasn't been filled in 20-some years. I think the last assistant chief was Gary Anderson. He retired as chief in 2016. Patrol lieutenant, since I was promoted to chief, we haven't filled that role. That there was historically 2 lieutenants here. One that would oversee investigations, one that oversaw patrol division. Right now, we have 1, and he's kind of a just kind of administrative role where, you know, he handles things as they come at us, and you know, it's kind of like we pick up the ball, and whether it's me or him or the patrol sergeants, and kind of tackle things that maybe the patrol lieutenant used to.
Is he also close to retirement?
Next year.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think it's August.
Basil?
Basil and I think next spring Guzzo. Two relatively certain. Next year.
So the reason why I was asking about the detectives in particular, and it sounds as if this lieutenant role might be similar. If we're ideally promoting from within, we're already behind the 8 ball.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we are well behind. We're being generous. I think we're 5 years behind as far as getting us staffed and then getting people with enough experience where we can fully fill all the vacancies potentially.
So do you have to be a sergeant to go to lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You have to have 5 years in rank before you can test for the next one, so. And right now, two of my patrol sergeants are ineligible to take the lieutenant's test if we offered it at the moment. They don't have enough time to rank yet. Two of them, one will retire next year. One has not expressed any desire to move on and could retire in a couple of years, actually 1 year. So there's maybe right now I have one sergeant that's a viable candidate for a lieutenant.
Is that a state or is that our rules?
I believe it's our rules. It's our rules,
So they could be modified.
probably.
Would you discuss that with Brian? please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't even know, okay, yeah, I'll talk to the town manager if we need to change those rules.
So current time and position requirements are 5 years? Ewing,
5 years as a patrolman before you can take the test to be a sergeant, 5 full completed years.
Yeah.
And 5 years as a sergeant to be a lieutenant.
Sergeant Ewing has 2 years, and Brad
Probably.
has 1 approximately.
That's probably about right.
Sergeant Egley, I believe, is eligible in August, so with Sergeant Chevrolenchik and Guzzo, they probably came, or I'm sorry, they will become eligible in August. They have 4 years and change as sergeants.
August 2024.
That's Egley and who else?
Egley, Guzzo, and Chevrolenchik. Common spelling.
Sergeant Guzzo, though, he's
Gonna retire
He's
probably in the
retired.
spring unless the arbitration comes in a different way, he might stay a little long.
I didn't realize we had school.
4 or 5. For Guzzo.
this spring.
24. And maybe 6-8 months from now. Maybe.
I didn't realize we had school crossing guards, that they were part of the police department.
The town, I believe they're technically employees of the town. I think the district might kick in a little bit of their salaries, but we hire them. I think we currently have 4. We've had 6. We used to have 5 full staff positions in a floater.
Pretty sure we have 3 right now and there's a vacancy.
Yeah, we did advertise a vacancy, and the last I talked to, the public information officer, John Bojarski, there were no bites.
Hmm.
No interest.
So by count, you're looking at 10 officers. New officers, once the promotions were, and that's not counting as the assistant chief. So if you had the assistant chief, that's 11 officers.
This information on school crossing guards. The school crossing guard program provides protection for walking school children, assisting them in cross designated roadways to reach the bus stops during peak traffic hours. This program is under the direct supervision of the police department. There are currently 5 crossing guard positions identified to serve the town school district and 1 vacancy. The budget also reflects the expenses associated with the operations of the electronic safety signs in the proximity schools in the town. North Allegheny School District reimburses the town 50% of the costs associated with this program. Reimbursement is reported under local funding, et cetera, et cetera. So we have 4 employed then we advertise for the 5th. So Rita,
Do you think I should be?
I think it'd be great.
Great idea.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on the org chart? Vacancies, where they are? I mean, I think last meeting, we discussed this, but like I said, it helps to have it on paper, and it does highlight for me that it's not just new officers we need to put the new officers in place so that we have those leadership positions filled in the future, because that's where people are retiring from for the most part.
If the team's okay, I'd like to go and take this data from the org chart. And plug it in against, as far as when we anticipate retirements, and plug it in against what that initial report that I created, as far as based upon what the need was. I'd like to compare it against that and timeline it a little bit and just see, as far as if we were to start hiring next year. Like are the numbers and what roles would we need to do in order to make sure that we become fully staffed? And that we reduce our essentially our retirement risk. That's going to be happening here, because I mean, those people are going to retire, those officers are going to retire, but how to mitigate that and how we can backfill. And then, Chief, I'll work with you after you have your conversation with Brian regarding our ordinances, as far as our rules, regulations, as far as the promotion time and role piece, to see what that might be. Because I mean, I see a value in having that for sure, because they get to learn, right? Just maybe we have an exception policy, or we have maybe reduce it from 5 to 3, whatever that looks like. And then we can model that out to see how long it would take us to get fully staffed. Because based off what I'm looking at, I mean, just
We're
quick,
years away.
quick math, we're 5 years.
Yeah.
We're 5 years. So Chief, please don't retire.
What's the rules of retirement? Some age and year service, 56 adds up.
It's 25 years of service and age 50. But there are some requirements, like the older gentlemen that were hired even before me have a temporary benefit that in order for them to obtain it, where it plugs in, it's an addition to their pension until they hit Social Security age. I think they have to hit 55, so they might hang out later to obtain that temporary benefit that's not available to anyone that's been hired after Sergeant Cuzzo in 1998 or whatever it was. So some of the older guys are hanging out until about 55, so they can get this temporary benefit they call it with their pension. Anybody hired after Guzzo, though, does not have access to that and would hit the 25 years service, age 50, where they could go. They need both of those in order to. Now, what keeps people around a little longer is that Jack mentioned it, the 3-year drop pension option. Yeah. And to enter that, I think you have to be age 52 and a half or something like that. So it helps us retain some of that talent, getting a little longer than two. A little bit longer, to take advantage of that drop pension. So that is working for our benefit, I think, to some degree.
And the nice thing about the drop is you also know that they can't work past a certain time either. So, you can almost plan for that, knowing that if they do complete the whole drop program, that like they can't come back and say, you know what, I'll stay a couple more years.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Brad is right. With us, it's a 3-year, and whenever they declare and they are accepted by council or whatever into the drop pension, that they've got a maximum of 3 years.
yeah, they can leave before that, but
Can't stay.
they
beyond.
can't stay beyond that.
It's good.
And Justin and Chief, like, if you guys start putting that together or put that together, I'm interested in the whole timeline, but I'm particularly interested in the snapshot 5 years from today as we stand. Who we would expect to be retired, who would be retirement eligible.
Yep.
And who's possible to fill those positions as currently constructed, since 5 years is the current minimum period for progressing. I think if we see a 5-year snapshot like that, it's going to be very sobering. What's the word I'm looking for? Very
Good word, eye-opening.
eye-opening, yeah. Because I think you're going to see a at best half-filled org chart with hardly any leadership positions filled.
Is there any thought of hiring off of the current list?
After that, or could they
What's that?
earn
Is
it
there any
and then they have to.
Thought of hiring off of the current list?
I
Well, that's
believe
what we're
the
getting.
pension
Yeah.
starts
do
the minute they retire, if they're eligible, I believe so. So if you got hired,
There was delay.
I don't believe there's any delay. I think that's what the, and I'll double check that with Brian. I mean, I'm nowhere near there, right? So. But I believe that if you hit that, maybe you got hired at 24, 25, and if you hit age 20. Age 50 and you have 25 years, in theory, you could fill the pin and retire and begin collecting your pension immediately. Does that sound right to you?
Yes,
You know,
Okay, just looking at the time, let's move on. Good information. I didn't know if there was anything on the agenda from yesterday's meeting related to the personnel board. Any discussions that are relevant? Okay. All right, and no changes in plans for hiring, which as of last meeting was wait until the arbitration is complete, and then perhaps we will be asked to.
I think it'd be
create a new
prudent
list.
to start working on a test and
Yeah.
working on a new list.
Agreed.
and if I could say,
Totally
folks,
agree with that.
I think I discussed this with David months ago. Our qualifications for new hires, when we do roll out another advertisement. I don't know if we can, if there's any way to, what's the word I'm looking for, Mr. Casey? I guess that,
Yeah.
but simplify the qualifications. We know what they are, but so that it's in plain English. And I think it is, but whenever we tested a couple years ago under these fresh new qualifications.
Does
Yeah.
it look as sharp as that? Do we put it out in like?
I would like to get
Yeah.
there. And I can say to both my in-house folks and the people picking up our applications a couple years ago, expressed to me their frustration with not understanding if they were even qualified.
Mm.
Basically, I don't know if it's the wording. But it wasn't translating and I was getting it, like I said, from my own folks and from the people coming in to pick the application up. They're like, I don't know, reading this, I can't tell if I'm qualified or not. No one ever gave it specific.
Yes.
This may be way out of the box, but. Does anybody ever use an agency to go find police
No.
officers? A talent agency?
That costs money.
I
in
understand,
the past, they haven't had to.
but I'm thinking we may have to in the future. Because you have all these all these school districts now starting their own departments. Plus, you've got so many people turned away from that as a career because of all the violence they've seen
Mhm.
in the last 3 years.
One borough just advertised today, they are all hiring. I mean,
Everybody.
you name them, they're hiring, because of, like Jack just said, early retirements, burnout, whatever it is, social unrest a few seasons ago.
Did we have a QR code on ours?
I don't believe we did a couple years ago, Rita. I believe that Mr. Bajarski got it to a point. We'll follow up with him. I'm sure, I think.
We have a brand new web program and I'm
Yeah.
sure it can handle that.
Okay.
Because they did it for, I think, pickleball.
Thanks, Jack.
Going back to your recruitment agency idea, I don't think we should throw anything out. I think that might be very viable. It would there at the very least, I think. Start going to more professional membership type of organizations like
FBI.
well, FBI, but
CIA.
like there's other things like as is, which is like American Society for industrial security. There's these other areas that we can go to. InfraGard, which is a FBI citizen liaison piece. I'm a member of that where I can help sort of get that out there in that area as well. Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, like there's places we can go. For that, we're just gonna have to start putting pen to paper, listing that and actually coming up with a strategy, I think, like an actual recruitment strategy. To your point, Jack. And we,
Council would have to approve that, right?
yeah, I bet we're gonna get them like the options as far as like, here's what we think. You guys could take a look at it, see what's viable and tell us, how you want us to proceed.
Right,
Like-
gone are the days you just put an ad out and just wait for the influx of,
To watch over you, right?
yeah.
You're restricted to the contract as to what you can do
Yeah,
from an individual standpoint. So I can't say, well, let's sweeten the pot and give them a $5,000 signing
Right,
bonus
right.
because that's not in the contract. But what we could do is we could pay a recruiter to find people, I believe. And then if we hire them, give them something.
Yeah.
So I believe we could do that without too much of a headache, but you gotta check everything twice.
I mean, I can tell you currently, if you want a good police job, it's out there. So that's
If you wanna get what?
a good police job.
Oh, yeah.
It's out there. When I started in law enforcement, you would get on a list, there'd be 150, 200 people taking the test. And
300 or
you,
more.
yeah, and you had to
When
know
you see it,
people, if it was a county job, you were looking at thousands, but. You know, and it's to now, I see kids come out of the academy and getting jobs that I would have dreamed to have when I started. But it's not like that. So you gotta, it's gotta be coming out of the academy, or what I've seen other police departments doing now is hiring people and then sending them to the academy, almost getting somebody who's interested, get them beforehand, but that's a risk. Because if they don't make it through, right, there's that risk and reward type deal. So that's just something else to,
You don't need a conditional offer of employment, but it would probably have to be, or the requirements would have to be changed to accommodate that, right?
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the MPOETC, the Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission, offers some sort of like 50% reimbursement to the town if you do that, as far as the costs of the police academy. And I'll say to back Brad's point, never thought I'd see the day, but I went up at graduation last summer or 2 summers ago now, whenever we were testing Springs. I apologize, 2 springs ago, I'll get there. And spoke with the graduating recruits at the Allegheny County Police Academy, and I handed out a number of applications. I don't believe any of them have returned them in. And I had people turning me down that day. So thanks, Chief. Never would have saw that. Never would have thought that.
Why?
they probably already have jobs.
Probably either had something lined up, had a plan, know that they could have their pick of jobs out there as long as they pass the test.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we flagged for a discussion before we submit our recommended changes to the ordinance to town council. Because it's right in the ordinances, and for our rules and regulations, it's all under section 3.4, which is just a copy of the town ordinance requirements. In the Word document, it's on page 10, but it's section 3.4. And it's that second bullet point, the one that's labeled B. Chief, I'll write you up a plain English version of this list. But B is really the only one that's confusing because it has everything all in one spot. But under our current ordinances, so the requirement is you either have to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university, or have 4 years of law enforcement experience, or have an associate's degree with 4 years of military service and 2 years of law enforcement. So right now, unless somebody comes out of the academy that already has a bachelor's degree, we can't hire them. There's no path to hire that person. Unless they have an associate's degree and already served 4 years in the military. But for each one of those, you're adding on years. And that was one of the sections that we flagged for potentially recommending changes to when we send this to council.
So that's a good segue to this. Thanks for doing the highlighting, David. So that's one of the areas that we need to think about and discuss for changes to, okay, so hold on, let's step back. So this is our rules and regulations. And what David did between the last meeting and this meeting was to highlight the issues that are not in alignment with our ordinance. So in other words, if we want to change them, we would also have to change the ordinance, but first we have to discuss and determine what, if anything, we would want to change from the rules and regulations. Did I summarize that accurately, David?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I should preface this by saying I can't promise that I caught everything that we discussed. I think I caught everything, but I can't promise that I did. But these are all those changes that we had discussed and approved isn't the right word because we couldn't change it, but at least as a whole, we viewed favorably. But in order for these red line changes to be made, the town ordinance has to change first. And
Okay.
then these changes could follow. We cannot make these changes without the associated changes in the ordinance, in the town ordinance.
So maybe for the
There
sake
may
of
be-
time, if you just would.
Oh, wait,
kind of
Falco
put-
was about to say something, Amy.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Falco.
No, I was just going to say that there are a few that are just rules and regulation issues and not ordinance issues, but we can talk about those as we walk through these.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask David, to just kind of, let's not get into discussion mode, because I don't think we have the time, but maybe just point out, walk us through. This is the question here, the issue, and then we can discuss it. next.
Okay, so. And I don't have a summary, so I'm gonna be scrolling and summarizing as I go, but so for section 2.1A. This is just the provision about how long we're recommending the terms should be. Whether they're 3 or 5 years, the initial term is different because they have to rotate and be staggered, but then the discussion was whether the term should be for 3 or 5 years. I couldn't remember where we landed on that, so I put it in as an option. That's section 2.1.
That was recently changed, probably a year ago.
Oh, okay, I may have,
There's
it might have been related to those discussions then, so we'll have to take a look at that. At whatever we approve, there's gonna be another step of Falco talking to Steve Corbel. And figuring out what the changes in the town ordinances would have to be. So it's not like, this will just go directly to town council, because Falco and Steve Corbel, the town council's attorney solicitor, would have to have a discussion.
This current language, and it was so we could increase the board to 5, but no
Okay.
one on the board has an appetite for a 5-year term.
Okay,
They may, so it could be 3 or 4.
yeah, okay, we'll just have to check that. Section 2.3. There's minor changes here, but they're changes that need to be made because we increased the board from 3 to 5 members. Some of the way it read was still kind of off of a 3 board member structure, so those are just minor changes. And again, I'm happy to talk about these with anyone who has questions.
I have a
But
question.
yeah,
About actually, it's down below where, once you're finished with your term, you can reapply if you want to. And it's to the discretion of the board, of the commissioners or the whatever, town council. But when you look at the list, it tells you when your term is up, but it doesn't say how many terms this person has had already. And
that's a town council thing.
yeah, that
So-
needs to be put on that there so that we know, okay, because I know this from just being on the foundation board at the library. I've been on there for 12 years. It's like insane. I can't get off, but I'm getting off this year because they don't have any rules about that and they just keep throwing it at you.
Well, the town ordinances have a rule about that, I'm pretty sure, or at least,
They do. You could serve out a term if you've been appointed in midterm, and then you're allowed to fill 2 normal terms.
That's what ours says. The primary
Yeah.
board members whose term is expiring may choose to reapply for up to 2 additional terms.
So you could technically
Three
have 12 years on this board.
Well, if we say
you
that a
keep it.
term is 4 years versus
Right,
3,
right.
yes.
We should be fully staffed by now.
Yes.
well, and actually, that provision, from what Jack just said, that provision would actually have to change. In our rules and regulations, because
I agree.
Yeah.
Jack just said you can be appointed to 2 terms, to 2 full terms. The only way you can get more than that is if you were appointed for a partial term first. So you can never be appointed for 3 full terms under the town's ordinances.
Consistency, because there's so many things here, so many moving parts. You really need
Well,
consistency. Do the same thing on
I can
both.
promise you, I did my best with what was known, but I am not going to do a read against myself of these rules and regulations and all of the town ordinances. I'm only going off of what Falco highlighted from the changes that we made. So I'm not promising that 100% of this document is consistent, but the town ordinance is always control in any case.
I'm like,
Okay, so 2.3 I mentioned. 2.6, again, this change was just because we went from 3 members to 5 members. Instead of allowing 2 members to call a meeting, 3 members have to call a meeting. If it's not the chairperson. I had a question, the comment at the end of section 2.6 is probably directed to Falco, whether we should put right in the rules and regulations, accepting minutes for executive sessions or not, but that's a legal issue
Yeah,
type issue.
The Sunshine Act actually says that minutes only have to be kept of open meetings. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And
so
that
I don't
doesn't
think we need-
qualify as an open meeting.
Guys, I have to depart. I have a meeting with a 7-year-old kid who's mine. Not some random one, oh mine. All right.
Okay, yeah. I'll run through the rest of these pretty quick. My comment at section 3.4 is what I was talking about before. That's the one that probably will require the most thought and I don't know what town council's appetite for changing that is, but those are the requirements for hiring an officer. Specifically section 3.4B.
Yep, okay.
yeah,
I thought that was recently redone.
It was 2, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this list here is the new one. Section 3.5, there's a very minor change. It just it addresses the fact that we have online meetings.
And that one may be a rules and regulation issue as opposed to an ordinance change.
Oh, okay. Section 3.6. Okay, section 3.6, this, if I remember correctly, is in the ordinances. This is the one where the ordinance requires us to do a background investigation of all people on the certified list. We had discussed potentially changing that to not all the people, but the top, 8 or whatever as a rolling thing, so that the police department, if we have 20 people who make the list, the police department doesn't have to do background checks on all 20 people. They just take the top,
David,
however
that's
many, 5, 8.
not how I
whatever.
read it. It says container of the certified list of 3.
yeah. So I read it as.
So it's not everybody, it's just the top 3.
Can we just strike
Well-
that first 5 words and say?
You know what, actually, yeah, the first, it's the first 5 words that's causing, because that actually says, upon receipt of an application,
Right.
conduct a background investigation of the contenders on the certified list of 3 must have a defined meaning up above.
It's
Um,
3.14, so I think it's the top 3, but
Yeah, that still would be a ordinance change because that language upon receipt of an
Right.
application appears in the ordinance.
Right. So whatever the case is, this is the language that's in the ordinance. The way it reads right now is pretty confusing. I could actually read that to say you need to do a background investigation immediately for every applicant. Which I'm sure is not the intent, but it could be read that way.
right.
So in any case, that's another section that we should discuss changes to, but I don't think we ever discuss specific changes.
I'm wondering if you could just change it to the contenders on the certified list. Because we might be calling up 5, 6.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that I think we should change what this would be within town council's purview, but I think the ordinance should change to say something like conducting a background investigation on the top 8 scoring candidates on the certified list or something like that. But it should at the very least change from what it is now in some way. The next set of changes is down in section 3.9. The first couple changes, I just changed the order because it didn't make sense before. I wanted this to be a walkthrough. So I just switched the order of the written and physical because you have to pass the physical first. 3.10. This
Before you
is,
move on to that,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just back to 3.9, those changes also, I think, would be more a rules and regulations change. I know that we had discussed that in the process of putting the rules together. And the ordinance doesn't really specify the order of the testing,
Yeah,
what minimum score you have to reach. So this would be something that would be more a rules and regulations change.
okay. So if we approved it, we could just approve that.
But it's still that the change to the rules and regulations would still go to town council for final approval.
Right, right.
But it doesn't,
Okay.
doesn't have to go through the ordinance process.
Yeah. 3.10. This is the change to the scoring system so that the score is out of 200 instead of 100. So right now, the score is out of 100 total possible points. This makes the score out of 200 possible points without changing the weighting at all. Sections 3.12 and 3.13. The change to the for both of those sections, we had discussed switching the 80% to 70%. So I put those changes in there. I can't remember where we landed on that, but I do know we discussed it. Section 3.13, same change with respect to that, and then just some clarifying language is what's in red line there. I have a couple notes in that section for other things that we mentioned, but I don't think we ever decided on changing anything. Going further down, those are still changes. All the changes from 80 to 70, and then all those number changes all relate to that 70% versus 80% issue. Most of those will be just rules and regulations changes, but the actual percentage requirement is in the town ordinances. So the ordinance would have to change with respect to that. But then the details, like with the example scoring, that's just our rules and regulations. 3.14 is for the veterans preference points, which clarifies where and when those 10 points for veterans preference is added.
Could I ask you to back up a little bit?
Yeah.
On the oral examinations and the highest ranking of, where you're going from 100 down to 70. I thought you were gonna have something about if you had a tie.
There is something in there.
I thought there was something in there. There
Yeah.
should be.
There is. I saw it. There would be no tie if there was.
Yeah, there may be no ties in the ranking list. If any of the remaining candidates have identical average oral grades, then the board shall vote to break the tie between those candidates and order them accordingly in the list.
Okay, perfect.
So that's in the right before, in that section, right, the paragraph before the first bulleted list.
Right in the middle of page 16. Got it.
Yep. 3.14 I just mentioned. With a note, Falco, that note, I think it applies throughout. We just have to make sure that we're using the term final score and final composite score consistently throughout. I think only one of them is needed, if I remember correctly. Okay, and then 3.15, this again relates back to the background investigation and which applicants we have to do the background investigation on. This section just says we do them on the top scoring eligible applicants without a number. But then it refers back to that previous section. Actually, no, it doesn't. But I'm sure at some point through cross references, it does. Section 3.16, again, this is just that change that we talked about for going from 80% to 70% for the passing score. Section 3.17. Section 3.0, so I have a comment at section 3.17 as a discussion point. If we make the eligibility list, valid for a period of up to 2 years, hold on, yeah. So the way it reads right now, the initial list is valid for 2 years, but there is no provision to end that eligibility early, which means once we certify a list, that is the only list that can be used for 2 years. I don't know if there's a way to change it. I don't know if we want to change it, but I'm pointing it out because it might be something that we want to change.
But we could
And-
have intending lists, right?
We could begin working on a
Yeah.
second list, but not finish it before the other ones.
I do not believe that's the case. Falco, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you have a list, you cannot start working on a new list until the first list is expired, right?
Right, you definitely cannot have a second list come into effect while you still have candidates that are still on the current list. So you're correct that this list would be current for or valid for 2 years. I mean, could you start the process, 6 months prior to the expiration of that list? You could to have it ready to take effect when that list would expire, but you can't hire from a second list while there's still eligible candidates on the first list.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think anything here precludes us from starting the process of a new list before 2 years. Okay.
As long as it doesn't overlap, it can't overlap.
Right.
Okay. Section 4.6, again, that's just the same, going from 80% to 70%. 4.7, same thing. 4.8, same thing. And I think that's the last of the red lines. So I didn't keep that very short, but that's what each of those changes are and what they're designed to do.
So a lot of this we've discussed and decided we just need to document. Like the 80 to 70, for example. There are some things I think still for discussion. So for example, 3 or 4 year terms, since you said 5 years isn't going to fly. And what else? Looking for the qualifications perhaps in section 3.4b. Need to make sure the verbiage for the background checks is clear. I'm looking for like what exactly we need to discuss. Most of these are just kind of clean up things, and thank you for doing that, David.
Yep, no problem.
We talked about the scoring system. Is there anything else major you think that needs a discussion next meeting?
No, I mean, other than what's in here, I don't think so. Like I said, I think I caught everything that we discussed. But I can't 100% promise that. So if anybody had something that they feel like we discussed that's not included, just look for that. I did the best I could. I think I caught everything. I just, like I said, I can't promise that I did,
Okay.
because there was a lot there. So there was a lot to go through to try to figure it out. But
Oh. I believe it. Okay, just in the interest of time, let's move along then and put off the discussion for those two areas for next month. Which I think would be the 28th of November, 4th. Did we say 4th or last? Either way, it's the 28th of November will be our next meeting. Which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Okay, any general updates? Did you guys do pedal it forward?
So community engagement, a few things that hit me.
Okay,
We were short-staffed that day, so we did not. I sent my regrets to the owner of McCandless Floral because we have participated. I think in many recent years in a row. We did do Bigs and Blue and we began it on Thursday. First meeting was of the school year, so that was good. Like I think I might have said last month, there are 3 officers, myself and 2 others. There's a county sheriff involved, medic involved. So that's always a good program, and we began this year. We are collecting non-perishable food items and also, maybe some basic toiletries and such for the North Hills Community Food Bank. There is a large collection receptacle in the police lobby. They reached out and asked us to kind of start it earlier this season. We try to do it every Christmas holiday season. And this year we began it early. We'll probably continue to advertise that and move it to the top of our police Facebook page. But we have it on the document. I need to follow up with that and see if the town has shared it. I believe Brian and I discussed it last week, but I don't know if I actually asked him to put it on the town page.
A nice thing to ask for is gift cards, the Giant Eagle.
People can use those right anywhere. Maybe we'll add that to our post and maybe have the town share it. So we are in the middle of collecting for that cause. Other community engagements, Detective Sergeant Egley is in the middle of doing Halloween safety talks with the different preschools in the town. It's typically requested. Those are always fun for him, I believe. One of the hats he wears. And we had an officer up, I believe, in North McCandless Crossing last night. They had a trick or treat event. And we had an officer go up and hand out some candy and such. Engaged in kids.
okay. Any other questions, comments, updates?
When do we start the process? Is that something that we can decide?
Well, yes, I would say it is something we can decide. I think we need to get our,
Advertising.
well, advertising, yes, someone could work on, these things don't have to be sequential, but if someone can work on advertising, we can certainly I think we need to get this approved because this governs how we create the list. So I would say our priority is to get the rules and regulations updated so that we can use this to create the list next time. And then simultaneously, we can work on advertising and any other.
Need to have a time frame
Yes.
when we want to achieve certain goals.
That's what, we're kind of on hold now, right?
We could move forward with creating a list.
Oh, we can? I thought we needed.
We just can't,
Tell us to do that.
you can't, we could start now. We're gonna need to. We're behind the gun.
Oh, I totally agree, but I thought we were on hold because,
The settlement's eminent.
okay,
So,
Okay.
it's a month between each our meetings, we're losing a lot of time. And I fear that we need to start moving forward.
Can someone call the ones that we have not, I mean, the list that you have, I mean, I voted against it because of how it was done, not because I don't think every one of those guys would make
We
good
have that
officers
option,
once they're
but we don't know
trained.
when things
Right.
are gonna happen. But this, if we don't start, the new list will expire and we won't even have started the new list.
Right. That's like,
So-
check.
We need to be able to replace the old list by March 26th.
So who calls the people on that list right now? to
Chief
see?
Hawk.
You will, chief?
Absolutely, I know.
But he has to. We're getting two things confused
Yeah.
here. A new list and the existing list.
Right.
So. If council decides to hire somebody ASAP, we'll use the current list. If they choose to delay, then we're gonna need to go with the new list. Or extend.
This
this.
Falco, do we have to wait for a direction from council to start a new list? The process?
I don't think.
I'm-
Go ahead.
No, I do believe in most situations, yes, the hiring authority, the town council would request that we begin that process. But I would caution though, if you're going to change the eligibility under that section, we can't really begin even advertising because the applicants don't know what the qualifications are.
But I meant more, instead of advertising, we need to be working on who does what and when. Okay, we have to have a timeline. How long is it gonna take? So we have some kind of footprint of what this is gonna
Yeah.
look.
Well,
And
yeah,
then,
all the internal processes, you can begin that within the personnel board as far as the internal processes, but in terms of actually going out to advertise, we would have to have that request from town council and have already established what the eligibility qualifications are.
exactly.
Jack, you're just saying, let's get our ducks in a row.
I wanna be ready when they pull. the
Yeah, so you're saying, let's get all our ducks in a row. We'll get the formalities, everything that has to formally happen will go on whatever track that's gonna go on. But in the meantime, let's be prepared to the extent we can be.
Absolutely.
And then on that, the only other note I had was, oh, sorry, go ahead, Falco.
No, the old list.
So,
is the old
and
rules, right, so they could
just as
be
a reminder to the person,
retroactive.
I'm sorry, just as a reminder to the personnel board as well, that an ordinance adoption is going to be at a minimum a 2-month process to be able to advertise and then to adopt. So again, if we're changing the eligibility criterion and now we're waiting to our November meeting to even be able to put something over to council, you're looking at them not being able to really consider it until possibly their February or even March meetings.
So why can't we get this done online or something? Put in our 2 cents and do it.
Well,
Well, even then, because when's this list done?
March.
I don't know why it would preclude us from moving forward. If we happen to decide to move forward prior to this being adopted, we just follow under the
Right, old rules, retroactive, they're okay.
Well, you would have, again, the candidate, interested applicants need to know whether they need a college degree or not. Right, so if you advertise under the existing rules, you follow those criteria for eligibility, even to apply. If the goal is is ultimately to change that so that it does not require a college degree or an associate's degree and so many hours, as a police officer, they simply won't know that. And so you'll lose potential applicants and have to follow the existing rules and regulations.
And
in
what,
the
and what
existing
Jack,
ordinance.
and what I understood Jack just to say there, Falco, is that we'll go forward with the application process under the current rules while we're working on changing them for a subsequent time when we're gonna use in the future, but not for this next round.
Yeah, that's definitely fine. We just can't change in midstream.
So, but also bear in mind with that. If we go that route. And we certify a new list under the old rules with the old qualifications. Then whatever change we make to, for example, a college degree. That can't go into effect until at the earliest March of 2026. Because once we certify that list, it has to be valid for 2 years.
That's
So
correct.
Jack, that's where the timing of it starts. That's where the old rules and the new rules come to a loggerhead is. If we approve a list under the old rules, then all of the old qualifications are going to apply until March of 2026.
Well,
At,
then
at the earliest.
perhaps we should have a special meeting to hammer this out more quickly so we can get it in front of council quicker than waiting another month.
We can do that. I mean, last meeting, I remember asking, do we need a directive to start the process of creating a new list? And the answer was yes, no one's in any big hurry, wait for the arbitration. So,
Sounding like things are getting close, but that's all speculation. So
okay,
I mean, that's fine by me if we do a special meeting. Falco, are the only changes to the ordinances that we're suggesting that would impact the hiring process? From the ordinance perspective, is it just the qualifications? Or are there, I think all the rest of them relate to like internal stuff. Oh, no, also the scoring to go from 80 to 70%. And the scoring system. So yes, there are actually a number. No, not the scoring system, but the qualifications and then the grade from 80% to 70%, I think are the changes that would impact the hiring process that would come from the ordinances.
That's right. So I guess the demarcation line is once you advertise. So once you put that advertisement out there, whatever's in place at that point with ordinances and our rules and regulations, that's the process that we go with.
Yeah.
and it takes 2 months because
They
in order
have,
to change the
council
rule,
has to, yeah,
And have to.
council has to advertise it and then vote on it.
right.
twice.
Mhm.
So whether we have a special meeting or do this at next month's regular meeting. I would like, particularly for the requirements. Chief Hawk, I'm really interested in what you would have to say on that, so not right now off the cuff, but. You know, in our next meeting, I'd just kind of. You know, I want to make sure I get your perspective on everything there, but particularly the hiring requirements.
Okay, what if we did 2 weeks, so split Tuesday evening, so we normally meet Tuesdays at 5, last Tuesday of the month. What if we did like the 7th or,
That's election day.
oh,
Mm,
yes, it is.
It's not a good day.
And
Okay.
and
What about
next Tuesday is Halloween.
Halloween? Yes, lovely, okay.
The 14th, is that too late?
Yeah, at that point, we're only saving a week.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's,
what about a Thursday?
Okay,
Like the
So if you
2nd.
met in December, decided, it would go to council in December.
well,
December, January would be the votes, right?
if we decide November 2nd, it can go to council in November, can't it?
The council's meetings will be on November 13th and 27th, right,
Right.
Jack? The 2nd and 4th, two
Right.
Mondays of the month.
And then you.
Um,
So anytime before November 13th, what about the 2nd? It's a
Fine with
Thursday.
me. Thursdays.
The second I have an evening meeting, if we go back to 10 in the morning, I could do that day.
Hmm.
Yeah, the 2nd, I cannot meet in the morning. There's no way I could
Could you
do
do
that.
10 in the morning?
How about the 9th?
Depends on how busy.
Yeah,
Thursday.
You have to.
Or
tell them in a month.
earlier in the And on the second, I just couldn't
Well-
meet at the 5 o'clock.
Well, and remember the 9th, we have to give Falco some time to put together the whatever changes we agree to as well. So if we do it on the 9th, that does not give Falco a whole lot of time.
Okay, how about the
Yeah.
first? Or the third for that matter? Of November,
November.
next week. Believe it or
Uh,
not.
That's
The
less.
first, again, I have afternoon and evening meetings. I could do the morning on the first. The third, I'm clear all day.
Then that's the one.
What time works? So the third is a Friday. What time works for folks on the third?
Will you tell us? Cause you have.
Yeah, I'm pretty open on the 3rd right now.
How about 10
Morning?
in the morning?
Why don't we do it
I'm
earlier
good
than
at 10.
that?
9?
I can't do it earlier than that. You mean earlier in the day or earlier in the week, Matt?
Earlier in the morning, because you do it at 10, that just kind of destroys the whole day.
I could maybe move my 9 o'clock. Want to say 9? Does 9 work for everyone?
Sure.
David, does that work for you?
On the 3rd, let me just
Yes.
check my other. I have 2 calendars I have to check here. Yeah, that would work for me.
Okay,
9 o'clock is good for me also.
all right,
Don't know about Justin though.
all right.
Yeah,
Well, we might just have to go with it. So November, November 3rd, Friday at 9 AM. Seems like we have a quorum.
and people don't need to answer me now. I just, as a general sense, aside from the hiring requirements, that one paragraph in section 3.4B, is there anything that's going to require a ton of discussion? I mean, we might, want to discuss some particulars, but I don't think there's anything like outrageously divisive or anything, so.
I feel like we've had a lot of discussion on several of these items already, so I would say no, but
Yeah. Okay, and then, yeah, and then like I said, the only other thing would be those hiring qualifications. Jack, do you have any indication or any idea of what council's appetite for changing the hiring qualifications might be?
I really don't.
Okay,
I think our biggest impediment is no longer gonna be there. The person that had the issue with it last time it was discussed.
okay.
So,
Okay,
so I think we should be okay.
in that case, Chief, can I ask you a favor? Not to take you by surprise, but can you send around your thoughts maybe before the meeting to us on the hiring qualifications? Or at
Certainly,
least to me,
yeah, absolutely. I can take a look at what we have, David, and give my candid opinions.
and does the 3rd work for you? Okay,
I think it's time to share it with the board. With council to see, if they have any objections. Now be the time to identify them. Before we go.
In other words, we
down the
haven't
track.
decided yet on whether we're going to get rid of the requirement for college or 2 years, right? We have not decided. We're still discussing that. Is that what the decision is, or have you already made up our mind on that?
we had discussions about that
I know we do.
2 or 3 years. It feels like it's
Yeah.
been a very long time.
Yes, it has.
yeah,
I don't know that we've discussed or decided anything recently.
Besides that, the whole environment's changed.
Right.
It's getting,
Yeah. Yeah, Rita, I don't think we ever
Just keep it,
agreed to anything.
Collier with the extra money available is requiring that. I mean, there, it's not like other districts are getting rid of it.
Right,
There are, like, I know Ohio Township, if you have a bachelor's degree. This would be contractual probably, but if you have a bachelor's degree, you get so much money
More.
a year. If you have an associate's degree, you get so much money a year.
Mm.
So even if you hire somebody that doesn't have those qualifications, it may encourage them to go and get it
That's
due to the
excellent.
fact of,
Mhm. Money.
as money is always a big.
Yeah, that would be something. Is that something that you are discussing? You can't talk about your consultations over the contract, but was, I mean, was that ever brought up in contract negotiations of having degrees and increasing the ability?
We had to have, there's no reason to have that conversation, but if you change that,
Yeah,
it then becomes beneficial for the ones that do.
yeah,
Then they don't feel like, oh, well, I got hired with this and now somebody didn't. So that helps them, but then it also encourages, if you do hire somebody that has an associate's to maybe continue on to get their bachelor's, or somebody, if you lose the qualification, then it encourages them maybe to go get their associate's and or bachelor's.
so
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, Falco. We have contract negotiations underway and both sides have presented their cases, so that can't change. But if we wanted to have a change of this magnitude, we could sit down and have a separate discussion with the union to see if they would buy into it. And if both parties could agree, we could probably amend the contract.
You could by MOU.
Yes.
Is the hiring eligibility criteria in the contract? It's part of the collective bargaining agreement?
I have no idea. I don't recall, but I'm just wondering.
Usually hiring decisions are kept out of the collective bargaining agreement, so I'd be
Yeah,
surprised.
that's
if they
usually not
were in there.
contractual, but it would be, you're talking about if you added that piece.
That the verbiage to
Yeah,
a separate bump for people that have a certain degree of education.
Oh, definitely, that would have to be something you'd add to the contract, right?
So you could do an MOU
Right.
outside of the contract after the fact, so that shouldn't be a hindrance
Yes.
if we choose to go that way.
But would that have to? How would that look in our rules and regulations? Would that?
to us, it wouldn't matter. It would just be, you know, it would just be whatever salary ranges, for example. But that would be handled in the contract.
Right.
You know, from our perspective, it wouldn't matter, but it, you know, for the contract negotiations, the union might say, look, if you're now introducing officers who no longer have to have a college degree, they shouldn't be on the same pay scale as the officers who have a college degree. You know, like as an example, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, but that wouldn't involve us at all.
Okay. We don't discuss salary in ours.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So 6:34,
Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
anyone?
To meet again on the third.
Okay. We'll talk next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks,
She-
everyone.
I'll send you that plain English list for the current qualifications. And I'll, Amy and Falco, I'll CC the two of you. You know, just to make sure I don't get anything blaringly wrong.
Okay.